In this video, we're going to be looking at quadratic inequalities. So there's two main types to look at, and I've got two examples here to look at both of them. Okay, so let's start with the one on the left. With quadratic inequalities, you do have to make sure it equates to 0. So you do have to make sure there's 0 on the right hand side. And in this question, it's already done for you. So how do we start? First step, you want to factorize. And if you can't factorize, just use that quadratic formula and get your two solutions. Of course, if you're doing A-level, it's preferred that you just use your calculator to get the two answers using the quadratic equation function. And if you've got a problem with factorizing, go back and look at the video on factorizing. And if these are the factors, the solutions are x equals minus 4 and x equals 3. Next step, we want to draw the graph. So the solutions are minus 4 and 3. So they are going to be our x-intercepts. So you should know what quadratic graph looks like. So just sketch it on. And for this topic, we're not really worried about the y-intercept. And now that we've drawn it, we're going to go back to our inequality and see if it says more than 0 or less than 0. And in this one, it says more than 0. So in terms of our y values, which part of our graph is more than 0? And it's these bits. And now just ask yourself, in terms of x, which x values represents these bits? Or which x values refer to these parts of the graph? And it's when x is more than 3, that's where you have the tail on the right, and when x is less than minus 4, which refers to the tail going towards the left. And whenever your solutions is two separate tails like this, you'll give your answers two separate inequalities. In the next example, we'll give our answers slightly differently. So looking at the example on the right, as usual, the first step would be to make sure that 0 is on one side, and of course, that's done for you here. So we're going to go ahead and factorize. And the solutions will be x equals 5 and x equals 3. Next step, we're going to draw that graph just like before. So the x-intercepts are 5 and 3, and go ahead and draw your graph. And we'll go back to our inequality, see what it says, and it says less than 0 this time. So which part of our graph in terms of y is less than 0? And it's this bit here. This bit is below 0. So in terms of x, which x values represent this bit? This time we write our answer slightly differently. Since it's between two values, we're going to be writing it as one single inequality. And the way you do that is, you write 3 on the left, 5 on the right, and of course your x will be in the middle, and both your inequality signs will be less than signs, pointy bits to the left. And that's how you indicate your answers between two numbers. So your answer is between 3 and 5. So let's do one more example. So in this example, clearly 0 is not on one side. So we'll do a little bit of algebra to move things across. So we'll just minus 24 from both sides. Next, we're going to factorize as before. So go ahead and factorize, and our solutions are x equals minus 6 and x equals 4. And remember, if it doesn't factorize, just use the quadratic formula. Next step, as before, we're going to sketch our graph. So it crosses at minus 6 and 4. Now we go back to the inequality and see what it says. And it says more than 0. So we need to check which part of our graph is more than 0. And it will be these parts. It's going to be the tails. It's going to be when x is more than 4 and x is less than minus 6. So again, in these cases, you put them as two separate inequalities. And there we have it. I hope you found that video useful. Support us by liking, subscribing, and share this with your friends. And if you still got some more questions on anything, drop a post on our forum at examqa.com where you'll find your questions answered.